Welcome to the Sci Fi Center Live, coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada, right in the center of the up and running Sci Fi Center, fueled by Fort Bedlam Coffee House, the world's greatest coffee store, which is right down below me. If you get a chance, if you're in Vegas or if you're a local, you got to give them a try. I was a card-carrying disciple of Starbucks to the obscene amount, and their motto is, "We just want to become your favorite coffee store." I think they did. So, and I have 2 drinks with me: my hot pink lemonade and my Nuka-Cola. And that's how I'm going to get through this stream. Congratulations on making it to the end of the week, especially if you have allergies. Holy shit! Because I've been suffering and it's been windy out here. So we're going to talk our normal geek stuff, our normal wrestling stuff, our normal comic book stuff. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my sort of co-pilot producer, Brian, Master of None, and somebody who's probably going to make me mad by the end of the stream, Silent Scotty. How you guys doing?
Oh, come on.
I'm just
pretty,
on that one.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah. Whew. I don't know how it's been from your guys' end, but this week was a tough slog to get through for a number of reasons. Like I said, allergies, everything that could kill me is in the air this week, and it's blowing. A little bit of rain out here in Vegas, which helped it a little bit, but that just helps the bad stuff grow. Picard was actually good this week. It turned around from that last episode.
It wasn't horrible.
Huh? Yeah.
It wasn't horrible.
Episode 7 was bad. Episode 8 was pretty good. Or 9, I think we were on. Moon Knight. The only thing that sucks about Moon Knight is I need more episodes. This 6-episode crap. I'm starting to love this series, and I know as soon as I get to the point where I really, 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 really love it, I realize I'm on episode 6. This last episode was great, but we'll get into detail of that. We'll get into the Netflix thing. The fact the Netflix thing is going to be on the top of the deal, and then we'll go ahead and I got some comics I got to review. I'm a week behind on my comics, but I'm trying to be better. Be a better geek and keep up on reading. Some new stuff came out. A new Sandman book came out for Black Label, which is appropriate. There's a Blade Runner comic that's been out for a while, but I don't think enough people are reading it. And there is a new Elektra book out. It's Elektra 100, but I'll explain to you what that means. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chat and see if anybody is cussing at me. Hey, that dude Vince. Going on. I don't know who the hell that is, but okay. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. So you were asking me about Max. I did wake him up. It usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour for him to actually wake up and show up on stream. So he should be there within the hour.
The crazy thing about that is, what's up, Josh, that everybody pretty much knows that's a thing with him. So it's like, so if you show up to a show, it's a little bit late, he'll be there.
Yeah.
So, but hey, I know he's got his sleep thing going on. So, all right. Before I jump into my topics, you guys got anything big that's been happening to you in the geekosphere?
No. Work.
Cylon? Nobody? Nothing? All right, cool.
No, well, I will say I did read it. You asked me to come on last week for Frank Miller's Daredevil. I hadn't read it, so I didn't come on.
Okay.
I did read it this week. So, and it.
What did you think?
I think I'm a real big X-Men fan, and I have typically not really gotten into, not hated, but just not gotten into a lot of Marvel stuff. And it's probably my second favorite Marvel thing at this point. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to watch your stream to see what your opinions on it, but I loved it.
No, we didn't get a chance. Our schedules, me and Dawson and everybody else, our schedules didn't line up. But we're going to do that. We're going to try to do two for one and do Frank Miller's Daredevil and Chris Claremont's X-Men. Those are the 2.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now I'm ready for that. That.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up ready for Chris Claremont's X-Men because, like I said, that is where the series between him and Frank Miller, it became more than just a collectible thing for me. It became a story thing for me. Yeah. We weren't just collecting these things for value. We were collecting this thing because of this is the way I wanted to look at the world, as far as entertainment goes. So those 2 guys are super important. Those streams are probably going to be pretty in depth because I'm pretty sure all of us are going to have a lot to say on that one.
Sure.
So let's get into the Boogeyman news of the weekend with Netflix plunging 35%. We were talking about last night with Ian and how what this means for everybody. So let me go ahead and I'm going to read you the basics. Okay, so
I've been really frustrated with the way this has been reported. By the
yeah, and me too.
Okay, I'll shut up. I want to hear your piece.
Yeah, I'm going to read this article because Netflix world has been turned upside down. The company reported that its loss of subscribers for the first time in a decade. The news shocked Wall Street and sent shares plummeting 35% Wednesday morning, wiping off $50 billion in market cap. And this was after the company's stock dropped more than 40% a year to date. Simply put, Netflix's terrible 22 has now become disastrous. So I would go deeper into that, but some of it to me is hyperbole. Listen, there's a lot of things that factor into that. Some of it is the fact that when these market shares were as high as they were, we were all trapped in our house and we were burning through as much content as we could. Another thing is the format that Netflix has, and I think they're going to change that pretty soon, is where all their big stuff comes out all at once for the most part, and you burn through it and you're gone. Whereas all these other streaming services are keep you going. I mean, even like I just mentioned, Moon Knight, that's a 6-week conversation. With Game of Thrones, it's a 10-week conversation. So when you put it all out there, it's over and it's done with, and I just don't have any reason to come back unless you have another thing of content. But if you're going to spend that money on content, you need to be putting it out in consecutive weeks to keep people holding over. Or otherwise, if you're in the Stranger Things and you binge watch it, it's over with. And you hear people, Wall Street is designed to respond to growth. That's really what it is. They want to see you annual percentage growth and everything like that. With these streaming services, I think Wall Street is going to have to take a different approach because it's not necessarily about growth. It's about retention. And that's why when people say, well, why is Batman they're losing money, in the box office, why are they putting these things in 45? Well, because the value is in the streaming content. Because if I cap out, when there's only so many people in the country, so many people in the world, we're going to cap out as subscribers. So it's so important to retain people. Adding that value to the streaming service keeps me coming back and keeps me there. So, and another, like I said, one other thing that they didn't really focus on is that this is going to hit all the streamers. All the streamers are going to go through like this. They may take it better because Netflix, unlike Warner Brothers with HBO Max, there's a studio behind them. Disney has an entire conglomerate. They make the majority of their money through the park. So it's Paramount Plus, same thing. There's the studios own these things, whereas Netflix is on its own for the most part. But I thought the way this was reported, I was waiting for the Four Horsemen to come out of the sky. It was. I mean, what do you think, Scotty?
Yeah, there is so much to unpack on this, and so this is what I'll say. I work for a Silicon Valley company. I have been discussing this at that level for the last couple of weeks. The big thing that people need to realize what this is in anticipation of, all the points that you made and I heard you make on Enash's stream, that's all true. But there's one term I haven't heard anyone say, which is really driving this, which is called net neutrality. Net neutrality was a law that went through Congress. They repealed it. And now all the states are all the ISPs in every individual state are sort of negotiating and litigating to see what that's going to be. But I'll make net neutrality as simple as possible for you. Right now, if you buy internet, or if you are a company like Netflix and you have to negotiate with an ISP to get internet in and out of your data centers, ISPs have not been able to discriminate on the traffic flow, right? So you buy Comcast internet or whatever it is, Cox, whatever it is where you're at, and whether you're playing a game, whether you're playing Netflix, whether you're doing anything at all, they can't discriminate between that traffic. That's what net neutrality was. That was repealed. And those effects are going to start happening here in the next couple of years. And what that means is that now ISPs are saying, and specifically Comcast, but all the ISPs are taking their stab at it. They're saying, well, look, here's your bandwidth package, but if you want to have full bandwidth when you watch Netflix, it's going to cost you this much extra money. That's on the consumer side. And then over on the company side, like Netflix, they go, the Comcast says, hey, look, like you push a lot of video encoding. We have to support all that. So we're not going to give you a deal on bandwidth anymore. You're going to have to pay more for bandwidth if you want to have these like sort of packages. And right now, all the companies, there's nothing in stone, but this is an anticipation of net neutrality laws, 100%. It's not even about like the sharing, the password sharing, right? This is just, it is their first step. They're going to take it. Netflix has done a lot of price increases in the past, and they've learned a lot of lessons in how to roll that out. So right now, they're really, when net neutrality hits, I wouldn't be surprised if all streaming platforms go up $5 or $10 per customer across the board.
Now, I got a question. What does that say for like Peacock and all those who own Comcast or are owned by Comcast? Wouldn't that?
You just answered your question. You just answered your question. This is what's going on, right? So Comcast, right, being the ISP and then also the video provider, right? Well, they're going to give priorities. So like for instance, when you watch Peacock, they're going to give you a full 5 megabits per second. But when you watch Netflix, if Netflix doesn't play ball or pay the premium, well, they're only going to give you streams at like 3 megabits per second, regardless of what your bandwidth is that you pay for as a consumer. So this is the beginning of that. That's why Comcast has been starting up all these streaming channels. That's why, they're going to be in a position where basically at the end of the day, you're going to get better quality streams out of the Comcast owned apps and companies than you will from Netflix, for instance. That's what the net neutrality thing was all about. And they litigated that for 5 years. No one paid attention. No one said anything. It's in my profession, right? So I was telling people like, this is the biggest thing. And there's going to be things that are starting to take effect. And people are like, oh, I don't get into politics. I don't get it's like, well, now you give a shit when, Netflix is going to charge you $20. It's net neutrality, right? Net neutrality has been repealed. So now ISPs can discriminate on what and charge you more and package it up and charge Netflix more. So
now this move by Netflix, and to be honest with you, I actually side with Netflix when it comes to this.
Me too.
With the password sharing. This is what you're saying. Did this prompt them to tighten that up, or was that just because they wanted to get as many subscribers?
So up until a year ago, Netflix had a deal with Comcast. So, and without getting into the technicals, basically, to make the long story short, it ended up being Netflix getting a lot of bandwidth for free or at a very discounted rate. Okay. So when it comes to like individual accounts, if you're sharing your password, that extra video stream wasn't really costing Netflix any money. And I will say, like Netflix, I worked in Netflix, by the way, for a few years. It is a relatively honest company, right? So, because they weren't getting, hit hard from the ISP side, they really didn't start tackling this problem. But now they're in the face of a year and a half down the line, net neutrality is going to start affecting their bottom line, right? It's not that big of a deal when the ISP is going ahead and giving you some extra bandwidth for free that accompanies for the extra video streams they have to provide for an account. But once that goes away, it's going to cost them money. And so the hit that they've taken here, I mean, it's the way it's been reported. I mean, tech journalists in general just don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's the most frustrating thing to read. But this is a calculated hit. So they're making this move first in anticipation of that, because basically people are going to leave. People are going to be frustrated, but they're going to have between now and when the anti-net neutrality sort of agendas finally hit. And this is how you prepare a consumer for that. This is the first step in preparing a consumer. It's going to be a different world. Things are going to cost more. You're not going to have as much for your dollar. And that's just the way it's going to go. And that's going to be the case mostly for Netflix. Amazon's has been making deals because a lot of people don't realize is that, even Netflix, but for instance, they have data centers, but they run a lot of their infrastructure off of AWS. So when you watch a Netflix stream, odds are you're getting that from an Amazon server, by the way. There are a lot. And so like, everybody, right now it's all in the deal making, but this is a calculated move and they're going to be fine. And like you said, like they were already going to take a hit. People are going back to work. People are, glad that they're not stuck in their houses and they're going out and they're not watching Netflix, 8 to 10 hours a day. So it's all these things happening at once, which makes that number look way scarier than it really is.
Yeah, I saw it. And like I said, I literally thought people were going to start jumping off of buildings the way they made it sound. And I'm like, I'm going, somebody asked for the link in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the article in the chat so you guys can take a look at it for yourself. But yeah, it's definitely, but I'm looking at it as far as the streaming platform goes is the streaming platform is going to be the focal point of which all these companies are going to operate from. Because I've explained this before, when you put a movie into a theater, I love the theater going experience as much as the next guy, but I'm not paying for it. I'm not the investor. I'm paying for it at the low end, which is the consumer, but I'm not funding that movie. I'm not paying the actors. And when you have so many middlemen, like I said, people say, "Oh, billion, wow, you did great." Yeah, by the time that the person who actually pushed the ball rolling on that gets the money, there are so many people that have had their hands into it, and the infrastructure to do these things is not getting cheaper. I mean, not only this, but actors aren't getting cheaper. I mean, it's getting cheaper to film some stuff in the volume and stuff like that, but still, I mean, you got some of these actors and actresses that got to get back in deals worth $20 million. The theaters get 33%. When you're talking about an overseas market, you're talking about not even getting the majority of the money. So yeah, it did great in China, but how much does the company that put out the movie get that? So nobody thinks about that. But when it's on the streaming, if I produce something that goes in its primary function is going to be on the streaming, I get the retention value of putting the Batman on HBO Max, where a guy like me who did see it in the theaters can watch the hell out of it and break it down. And, a 3-hour movie is not so haunting when it's in my house. So when people say, well, Batman didn't make as much money as BVS and all that, so different circumstances. When BVS was released, the value to that movie was in the theater, in that theater dollar. When the Batman was released, they couldn't wait to get it to streaming because that's where their value was. So I think we're because of all these costs, you're going to see more bigger tentpole things go straight to streaming. And in some cases, you're going to see some massive movies that are only going to go into the theaters just so they can get Oscar consideration, and that's it.
Sure. Yeah.
So
can I ask a couple questions in the chat real quick?
Go ahead, man.
First of all, Dat Dude Vince, expect your Plex servers to not work unless you pay a fee. And I've actually been in the room for that conversation. The way that they're going to do a lot of things, the way they're looking at it is by packet inspection. So they'll see that you're passing video encoding. And yep. And so they'll see that that's what you're doing. And I think every state's going to be different, by the way, because of the way that the net neutrality legislation came down from the federal level. So, I'm not asking for you to tell me what state you're in. I'm just saying every state is going to be different. But expect to either be extremely limited in your upload and download speeds when it comes to video encoding, and therefore Plex, or expect to pay like an extra $10 to $20 a month for your internet. And then the second thing from Aaron is what's going to be happen to people in other countries when it comes to U.S. owned streaming services. So net neutrality is a piece of a U.S. legislation. So if it all revolves around your ISP, right? There will be a cost on the company side. Like for instance, if we're talking about Netflix, if you're getting your data from a data center in the U.S., then you would be affected. But if you live outside of the U.S., Netflix has a lot of data centers now around the world. So if that data center is in a country, and most other countries do not have an anti-net neutrality position, so you'll probably be okay if you're outside of the U.S.
All right. How did the chili dog conversation start? What did I miss? What now?
Bro, Dan brought it up. I was just telling him what kind of.
I didn't even know what that was going on with. He's talking about nerds and chili dogs. I just had a chili dog last night.
Yeah, so go get a chili dog, nerds. All right,
man. You guys find another table. Go get a chili dog. No, you're one day late, man. I actually had chili dogs last night. That's what's creepy. Like we're sharing the same brain.
Casper's stacked chili, Velveeta cheese. Say no more.
That sounds like a heartburn grenade.
Mm-hmm. But it's delicious.
All right, so there's a lot of stuff behind this streaming reality that whenever I get a chance, I try to bring what I know or what I can bring to the surface, because this is where it's going. I mean, this is where, and I'll be honest with you, I'm enjoying it because, like I said, I will go to the movies, but at the same time, I enjoy streaming because I there are certain things I'm just not going to take a chance on if I got to spend a lot of money, especially if I'm taking people with me and I'm paying. That experimental thing that's in the back of my head, I might give it a shot on streaming. I don't know if I'd pay $40, $50, $60 to take a family to it. So there's a lot of stuff that just won't get made if it's dependent upon the theater dollar. So I hope this balances out. The net neutrality thing, I really hadn't really thought of that as a part of it, but now that you lay it out that way, that just makes that one of the big aspects of it. So, wow,
That's pretty huge, actually.
yeah, that's and I wish they would they would put that out there though, because like I said, that's a
because they don't want people to panic.
Well, when you
net neutrality lobbyists are working very hard right now. So, yeah. There's even
doesn't seem like there's any money. I mean, because there's no money to be made with net neutrality, simply because people are just going to pull back. You know what I mean? They're just going to, if it gets too expensive, they'll keep certain streaming services, or you won't have that continuous subscription, and which is, to me, that's bad. I mean, I would rather have less than have people drop off, because once they drop off, you're so if I'm a streamer and I have your server for a year and you got me locked in for 12 months, that's a good thing. But if I decide, you know what, I'm only going to 6 months out of the year, if thousands of people make that decision because this stuff gets out of hand, that's where you're going to start losing customers, and some of them won't come back.
Yeah.
And so they got to be really careful. I hope the guys who are lobbying the good guys are winning on this one. That's all I got to say.
Oh, and there's one other point I wanted to make about that too, which, because people look at numbers like this, and understandably so. Unfortunately, I have to live in a corporate world where I have to look at this stuff. So there's when investors take a look at valuing a stock, buying a stock, selling a stock, right? It's not about how much profit total a company made. It's how much profit versus operational costs. So even though, they've lost subscribers and they have been devalued, what will happen is on the next fiscal quarter, Netflix is gonna report a lower operational cost because they're not paying for these extra streams. They have less going out and coming in. So that sort of division, that's going to we won't really know what the effect of this is. This is the immediate effect in the market right now. But at the end of the next fiscal quarter, which I think comes in May or whatever, at the end of May, when they look at that differential, that's what's actually going to redrive the stock. And I bet you'll see an increase in the stock price. It'll go back up about $10 to $15 a share.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Probably more information than you were thinking of tuning in when you just saw my little blurb about it. Scotty just gave you a whole new concept to look at this whole thing. And that's great. So, all right. Well, hopefully this comes around to the point where it settles down. My next topic, and this is gotta be my show is vanilla in comparison to some other streams. I don't really get too controversial, but I know I can already feel the hate coming from this next topic, because I don't think Grant Gustin should be the Flash outside of his own screen. Listen, I have very little use for the CW shows. I've outgrown them. A lot of them started out good. The stories tailed off. The character development tailed off. The limitations of being a TV show really started to bleed through. But I understand and appreciate that other people like them. So if you watch the CW shows, more power to you. They just weren't for me. But with the Ezra Miller stuff coming up, and we won't get it too deep into that because that's TMZ stuff and it's still a moving situation. But the topic of why not just replace Ezra with Grant Gustin? And my reason is simple. Just because something works within an environment that is a TV show under a specific creator doesn't mean it's going to work in another environment. When they cast this guy to do this show, those showrunners, that he fit what they were doing in the atmosphere that they were writing. The next person that does a Flash movie, whether it's Ezra or anybody else for the big screen or cinematic, we don't know that this guy's ideas and vision is going to be consistent with this. And he should be able to pick his own actor. And that goes for any of these guys that are on any other format. They're on that format for a reason. Somebody chose them to fit the story that they were telling. Grant Gustin fits the story that those guys, or to a certain extent, because the story kind of fell apart, but he fits their agenda, their story that they were telling. It's not automatic that he would be able to go into a big screen. What if you got a Quentin Tarantino or somebody with a totally different mindset and our James Gunn, totally different mindset and how they approach superheroes. Does Grant Gustin fit that? Does anybody? I mean, would anybody transfer from a TV show? It's different than when you're talking about like a Star Trek or something like that, where you have TV show characters that transfer. It's the same people, the same story, the same vision. With these superhero IPs, the Flash, these two Flashes that you see on the screen are drastically different. Come from drastically different frames of thought. And to think that the CW guy could fill the shoes of that, and this is not knocking him at all. But he is there in his show based on the situation that they built around him. And the same goes for Ezra Miller or anybody else who picks a new Flash. So I always hear this and it drives me crazy. What do you think, Brian?
Well, you guys know I have that Star Trek opinion when it comes to handling a franchise. And I think DC having just I understand a couple multiverses is one thing. You know, Star Trek had that, you know, it's not too confusing, but when you start laying like 15 different worlds on top of each other, it just kind of turns me off. So I don't know. I'm not really excited for DC going forward, to be honest. The Batman really killed my enthusiasm. So
wow, man. Get off my lawn.
I gotta say, look, Brian, I'm not here to give you any crap, man. I was genuinely surprised that was your take. That's all. I was just surprised.
I guess I wasn't in the right frame of mind or something. Like, I'll be legit. My dad passed away, so some of the stuff that I've been dealing with, it's a lot different than normally. But I found the movie to be way too bleak, and it was too long. I fell asleep.
That I agree with. It was really long. It could have cut about 15, 20 minutes.
It was just, I don't know. The one thing I really couldn't stand about it was the whisper talking. It was like 90% of the movie. People were talking really quietly, and then
I've heard a lot of people say that. I did not have that issue.
It was horrible. I swear I made a joke. I was working the remote, like, you know, I was playing a shooting game. Mm-hmm. You know, it was that bad. It was turn it up, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down. It was just like I can't do this. I'm just kidding. Ooh, no, don't even get me started on the fact that HBO Max does not like have apps on any other television. Okay, I have an LG TV and there's no HBO Max app, so I have to take my HDMI cable and plug it into my TV.
What cable company do you use?
Oh, that's why. I'll tell you exactly what's going on. I bet a lot of people are doing that. So when you do that, it forces 5.1 and you can't turn it off. So if you don't have 5 speakers, it's not gonna deliver right.
I mean, either way, I'm like,
I have Cox and I just say HBO Max and it comes up. So I guess
we've got Charter. No, it's the TV brand. Like the LG TV doesn't have it in their store.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. HBO Max made a deal with Roku and Amazon. So
yeah, I need to get. Can they? I was trying to get it through. You have to have a Fire Stick, huh?
Yeah. Do you want, dude? After the show, let me know. I have like a couple of Fire Cubes. They're just sitting around that I don't use anymore because I got a TV that has it. If you want one, I'd be glad to send it to you.
Sure.
Here we are making connections. That's my take on that, and that's any of these.
He's my nerd brother.
Yeah. if they ever bought Arrow on there, what do you think, Scotty?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to be a downer either, but DC is such a mess right now. It's hard for me to have an opinion about it either way. It's like, I mean, I've been pretty clear about how I feel about Ezra. I think he needs to get help. I think that his health and other people's safety around him are more important than having him stay as the Flash.
Yes.
But those decisions are out of our hands, and Warner Brothers / Discovery are going to do what they got to do. Grant Gustin, I mean, like I watched the Flash show for the first, I want to say 3 seasons, but maybe it was only 2. And then I fell off that show. I think Grant Gustin is okay, but I'd say exactly what you said, William. TV and specifically CW shows are not going to translate, at the very least, in my opinion, to the tone of what the Flash is set up. At least what my impression of what the Flash movie is going to be. and that's not based on leaks or anything. It's just the actors involved, the pseudo Snyder universe sort of tone. I don't see Grant. I mean, it's like putting a Care Bear in hell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Grant Gustin's way too happy, way too smiley, way too do-goody. You know what I mean? And I just think it's going to clash. He's going to be like the only spot of color in an otherwise grayscale movie. Just tone wise. I don't know if we even need to have an opinion about this, though. There's so much that's going to happen between now and when that movie comes out.
Yeah, I'd be honest with you personally. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll go get the help he needs. I don't think he's going to get pulled from the role. I think if it was coming up in the next couple of months, maybe we might have an issue. But with damn near a year before this movie gets released, there's a lot of room for things to improve. And there have been, like I said, the money that they've invested in it. Like I said, people get help all the time. People run into things and they correct their situations, far worse situations than this guy's been in. I mean, so I think I've been
really frustrated with the dehumanization that I see. I mean, just in general, I'm not pointing at anybody individually. I think people kind of lose their perspective when it comes to the internet and celebrity. And they just see this as a prop. They see a person as a prop. They see a person as, a vehicle to get certain content they want.
Or push a certain way of thinking.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm just not interested in those conversations, those people, those divisions anymore. So
yeah, that's why I pretty much banned anything. Like the only time you'll ever hear these two names, and this is it, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. There will never be a topic on this show. I'm not whether I choose a side or not, never happened. It is just there is no entertainment value in me delving into these people's personal lives. I don't know Amber Heard and Johnny Depp because of their personal life. I know them because they popped up on my movie screen, and I either enjoyed or didn't enjoy their content, and that's it. As far as what happened in their breakup and all that stuff, don't care. Ezra Miller, listen, they've made it a lot of the story, and they've made it hard for us to navigate around it. He's just another guy, just like anybody else in any workforce. When they have issues, they go get fixed and they come back and they continue their job. I mean, I work around people all the time who it doesn't come up in conversation because it's generally not anybody's business. Have mental issues, have gone through a lot of things, gone through a lot of heartbreak, gone through all manner of discourse, but they don't, they're not, we don't feel privy to what's going on in their life, but we feel privy to what's going on in Ezra's life. And then, like I said, it has become the story, which is unfortunate, but I don't think he's going to get replaced, to be honest with you. I think he'll ride his ship. But I also think that because there's enough time in between now and then that there's just not going to be any sense of urgency to do anything like that, especially with the amount of money that they put on there. But this conversation does go on. To me, the CW, I hope that's one of the things that the new regime takes a look at. And if they're going to keep it around, it needs to be blown up from the ground up.
It needs to be complete. I mean,
it is. I still think there's a role.
The CW. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's just.
I still think there's a place to have TV content for DC IPs. It's just got to be better. You got to do a better job than what they've done with this. It's hard to watch. And I tried with Crisis. Crisis was not as big as joke as its source material, but it tried hard to come in at a close second. So but there's money in the CW if you do it right. I mean, not on that network because it loses money, but if they sell their stake in it and still continue to produce things, maybe for HBO Max. But it's just there's a lot of lost potential on with the characters on that show. The only thing that I find watchable personally is Lois and Clark, or Superman and Lois. That's it. And even that gets to the point where it's like, okay, wait a minute. I see a lot of stuff that gets recycled. They've seen things that worked with Superman, a lot of things that got dismissed, but now they're working again. And I see a lot of Zack Snyder's Superman and that show, at least trying at it. But the entire CW thing, people think they watch CW and they think that everybody watches CW, and it really doesn't have that large audience by comparison.
No. If you take a look at the numbers, they've been dropping steadily, and I'm not even talking about Batwoman. Although those numbers were abysmal by the end. But just in general, those shows are, when Arrow first started, there was a huge audience around that. And I actually thought that show was pretty good for a while. But it's just a mill now. Like they're not, you can just tell like there's like 6 different writers teams, and I don't think any of them talk to each other. And you can like tell from episode to episode that this is not the same people writing dialogue. There's just so many disconnections. But my opinion is that CW shows are for people who watch TV with their phone in their hand while they're reading Twitter. And if that's you, then you love it. If you pay attention, then you hate it.
Oh, here, Anthony Beltre. Yeah, he'll be a cameo, and it's appropriate. He should be in a cameo if that's if the story that they're telling is that type of crisis type storyline or reverse crisis storyline. He's very relevant to it. I just don't want to see him I just don't think he's suitable as a replacement based on just the fact that he's worn the Flash costume before. I would have to see what director they hired, what the screenplay looks like, and then go from there. We could get somebody that none of us are thinking about. So
I would like to see a lot more unknowns. You know, I'd like to see more studios take risks on real auditions and new talent, and see some faces. I'm somewhat tired of seeing, like for instance, like Ezra Miller, like as much as
See, I didn't know who the hell he was before the Flash, so I'm in the dark on that one.
Yeah, after I saw him in The Stand, which is a show that you can watch on Paramount. It's the Stephen King story. They remade it. So
Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, actually, I thought Whoopi did an awesome job as Mother Abigail, but she was great. Actually, I love The Stand, and I thought the reboot was really well done. You had Alexander Skarsgård, so
Yep, I did watch that.
Yeah, but Ezra Miller was in there as the trash can man, and man, it was weird. It was so weird, and I was just like, that was like really like when I started paying attention, it's like, who is this Ezra dude? And he's a wacky guy. So
yeah, like the first thing I ever saw him in, I think that I actually knew that it was him at least was when he was in BVS for a little bit. But sure. As far as it was Justice, that was it. That was my first introduction to that guy. And it's funny that a lot of these actors that were in these movies, besides Ben Affleck, in 2013, Henry Cavill wasn't a household name. Now look at him, dude. This guy can write his own check. Gal Gadot, I mean, she's becoming. They're all becoming bigger stars now. And even Ezra, I love him or hate him, he's become a bigger star since then. It's just weird. Yeah. When we first started this journey, it was only it was only a handful of people who they knew were. So, but yeah, as far as that goes, that's why, like I said, I don't have much use for CW anymore, but I definitely don't have use for those characters replacing big screen characters just based on the fact that, hey, he's on the CW. That's not enough for me. I would need to hear from the director, the producer, and all that. So now we're going into something that I know Brian, it's near and dear to Brian and myself. Sorry, Scotty.
And me. No, it's me too.
Oh, are you a checkhead?
Oh, heck yeah.
Hey.
Oh, I thought, who did I have on there that before that wasn't, that started doing this snoring thing? Okay, here we go.
It's the best figure.
That's Scotty. That's little Scotty.
Scotty, man.
Yeah.
I want that best.
Captain Montgomery Scott has a dilithium crystal and a scanner with him. Nice. I got that figure when I was 8.
I know I probably had the wrong episode up. Was it 8? No, it was 8. It was 8 this
Yeah, it was 8. It was 8.
What did you? I'm going to start with you, Brian. I have mixed emotions about this. It was an improvement on 7. Because 7 was bad. I'm sorry. I can't. I love the show. 7 was a bad episode for me.
6 and 7, I thought, were both equally as terrible.
Yeah, the visions and the whole baby Picard, John Picard, June, whatever, and his father and all that. Listen, I understand that might be part of his deal. I just didn't care enough about that for this particular storyline. I got the Borg Queen running around eating batteries. I got all kinds of stuff going around. I got the FBI agent, arresting people based on whatever, and his ending was kind of screwy. And then I got Picard running around in his memories with, I'm sorry, I don't care about his mother and father in this part. Q's involvement is even more curiouser now because of the fact that what's happening in him, and it left a lot of plot holes as to, he's starting to be depowered, but he's still being able to do certain things. So I'm ready. I'm ready for this to wrap up. I'm ready for this to wrap up because they've got me to a point where it's like, what's Q doing? I love the interaction between him and Guinan in the police station. I did, even though I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I understood that it was something big and I need to be paying attention.
Sure.
7 and what's her faces? Raffi. I can't stand him anymore.
I hate Raffi.
I love those two characters. I love those two performances. But this story arc that they're on,
they ruined
the whole Vern and Shirley thing. I can't do it anymore, man.
It makes no sense. And it yeah. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Oh, yeah, no. It's just, I mean, I understand. You know, they're trying to portray a relationship on screen, which I understand, but it's just the banter and the chemistry is just not there, and it seems like really like they're trying to force something.
Yeah, especially with the humor. Oh.
Yeah, it's so bad. Yeah.
So,
I again, it comes back to like, I'm actually, I wish that this whole season had just sucked the way I felt the first season just sucked. I wish that had been the case because like up until like episode 4, I think at this point, I was kind of bought in. I was like, oh hell yeah. Like I was literally starting to tell my friends that had disavowed Trek, like, give Picard season 2 a chance, just give it a chance, like there's some cool stuff they're doing. And then by the end of episode 7, I was just like, I just don't trust this franchise anymore. Like I feel like I feel like I'm becoming one of those people who's just like, Kurtzman has ruined all of Star Trek, like, and that's not quite my opinion, but I'm just saying like I feel it in my heart that I'm getting pulled that direction because it's like, because again, they don't follow their own rules. They state Picard bad because of this, old Star Trek bad because of this. And then they do the exact same mistakes as if they're immune to any of the consequences, immune to any of the criticism. And Raffi embodies that entirely. The crappiest stuff, the worst decisions. They're selfish. They're narcissistic. There's no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
And she's always one to lecture JP.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Exactly. And it's like at this point, it's like because 7. I defended against that, by the way. Like I've been one that's like, no. But that's after episode 7, I was like, that's exactly what they're doing here. That's exactly what they're doing. And they're doing it poorly. Like, and that's the thing, if you're going to be a writer on a Star Trek show, you need to have vision that is worth sharing with an audience. That to me, apart from any of the stories or the plot lines, specifically in the Star Trek shows, you should have some sort of introspection, some sort of philosophy, something to hand the human race through your entertainment of Star Trek, and none of that exists here. It's Vader Twitter opinions on screen wearing a Star Trek uniform.
The problem with this show for me, and I still like this show, but there's certain parts of it just rely too much on the fact that here's the next generation, here's Picard, here's all your favorite stuff from this era, and even to the point where next season who's all coming in for the final season. It just seems like they are trying to tell that era's stories juxtaposed on 2022 or 2024 is where they're at. And I just can't buy it sometimes with those characters. I've already, I've seen them tell that story in their area. And with Strange New Worlds and all the other ones coming out, it's all I've ever going to see from those characters. It's just the storytelling around them is going to be pretty much brand new.
Can I say how scared of Strange New Worlds I am now?
Yeah, same.
I'm excited.
I get your excitement,
but after episode 7, I was like, I want to be excited. Like it's not even a thing like I want to hate it. I'm just like, my
different parameters.
Strange New Worlds went down at least 50% after episode 7.
Different parameters, though. Different parameters.
No, is it though? Is it though?
It's
really?
The same writing groups.
But different parameters. Like I said, that's why I don't
think that matters.
I think the story that's being driven by Strange New Worlds versus the story and the plot for Picard.
These writers are shallow, talentless, and children.
They've already cast Captain Kirk for season 2 of Strange New Worlds. They are totally rebooting the original series right in front of our faces, and they're calling it something else.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. It's kind of messed up. I titled 10 Forward why I didn't watch Picard this week because I didn't have, well, one, my Paramount Plus ran out. Okay. But 2, I honestly, and I've since watched the episodes, but it's my enthusiasm week to week is starting to wane really, really bad. And I'm really positive about this show. But since you said that a couple weeks ago, Skyly, I'm like, no, I'm thinking about it really hard. And that's what I see. And it's really bad because it's like you said, they're not offering an alternative It's like, yes,
and I'm ready to hear it. If you want to go back and say, look, like different time, different perspective, mistakes were made, let's do it better. I'm all for that conversation.
yeah.
But that's not what's happening. You're replacing what you're saying is bad, which you called hubris. Now you're replacing with self-centered narcissism masquerading as a virtue, or somehow, a higher, level of consciousness or awareness. And it's like, it's not matching up. And Raffi is like the epicenter of that for me. It just, especially in episode 6 and 7, I can't remember which one it happened. Just like that whole interaction between the two of them. I was just like, these two have no chemistry. Raffi is a terrible person. Like, what is even happening right now?
Yeah. And she's obsessed with, what's his face?
Yeah.
His death.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions to the host and the panel. Should I watch Picard season 2? Watch season 1? Listen, we're not even done with this. This could wrap up and solve a lot of things. But personally, I would go ahead and watch it. I mean, like, if you have Paramount Plus already, I don't know if I'd buy it for Paramount Plus, but I already had it. There are some issues with it, but there is a chance. There are 2 more episodes left?
Yeah, I mean, but there's some stuff that's redeeming. Like, I will say, it's not 100% bad. Okay, I love the Girardi Borg Queen stuff. That's been
same.
That's been great. Their interactions, the talking to themselves, I love that. Okay, I'm really interested to see where that goes. I thought I wasn't gonna like the Soong stuff, but I kind of like it. Now that I found out why,
suck, by the way, that was the part that I thought was like, I don't see how they're going to do this again.
I was starting to agree with you because they touched on it in Enterprise, because that was why the Klingons lost their ridges,
which I hated. I really wanted them to.
It's a long story.
Yeah, I had a storyline that I imagined out for how the Klingons, why you saw the ridgeless Klingons versus the ridged Klingons, and that it was all tied to the story that Star Trek Enterprise was originally going to tell, instead of the one they got ham-fisted into. Yeah. And that had to do with the future Romulans basically experimenting on past Klingons to try to disrupt what would become the Klingon Federation Alliance. They were trying. That's why they were placed where they were before the Klingon or before the Romulan War. That's why they had technology that they had no business having. They had a cloaking device. We know that the cloaking device didn't come about till right around Balance of Terra, but there was a reason why that Romulan that we never got to see in the future, was doing that. He wanted to disrupt these things before they happened and make the Romulan the dominant species in the Alpha Quadrant. So we never got to see that. We basically got goofy stories that we replace all that with, and that's just what happened. That's the story of Enterprise. That's, if anybody wants to see what toxic fandom, how destructive it can be, they whine about Snyder fans, all that. Dude, you give me a mid-2000s Star Trek fan, I'll show you the most toxic. Not all of us, but the toxic. Yeah, in the
mid-2000s song, I actually loved Enterprise. There's my hot take.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst show in the world, but it was never what it should have been. It was never what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And, it was in that last episode, somebody should be in that somebody should be in leg irons for that last episode.
I thought they had some of the best mirror universe episodes out of any of the Star Trek series. Just like if you take those, just the way that those flipped and the way those went, it was well-written episodes,
Well, absolutely. You get to find out the Terran Empire and how they came to be.
Yep.
Like, the reverse world of First Contact. That was
she really shined in that. Sato, oh man, she was my favorite.
Awesome, Aaron Pritchard. But I'm glad someone else does too.
Long hair.
All right, hold on. Somebody. And this doesn't surprise me. This was a movie that was in the theaters. This was a heavily, heavily promoted movie that was in the theaters long enough to make over $700 million, and whose 12 months leading up to that was properly approached, versus Zack Snyder's Justice League, which they tried to hide. That was not in a movie theater unless you had certain engagements that they really didn't ramp up outside of fans and Zack himself on his Vero account. So I expect any major movie that has that kind of push behind it to surpass something that was only released on streaming, So, but like I said, had the Batman not been released in the theater, and here's where that works as a symbiotic relationship. had the Batman not had the hype and the money put into it, heading into the theaters and done what done, who knows what his views would be on HBO Max? Would they have hyped it up to go on HBO Max as much as they did? I think they will do that in the future. But yeah, anything that is hyped up as the Batman was probably one of the top 3 movies of the year as far as hype goes. Is going to surpass just about a lot of things. I wouldn't be surprised if it surpassed a whole bunch of other stuff on its way up there. I know I watched the Batman a bunch of times, but once one of them is, they're both long movies, but you know what? That extra hour that I'm sitting around for Justice League, that might be the difference between how many times I watch it. So, but no, I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as the power of when Warner Brothers and DC Films wanted to do something and make something work, they did it. When they didn't want to make it work, they did that too. That's just
they reluctantly released the movie at the end of the day, so they put very little behind it. So
yeah, as opposed to something else that they put. Shazam made less money than most of their films, and they got behind that. Shazam barely broke 400 million, yet it got a sequel. Batman versus Superman made 872 million. And it was basically, the end of the world because they expected, it's Batman and Superman, it's supposed to draw $1 billion.
Now, here's the thing. You guys there's something that we never talk about once discussing this movie, and I'll be really quick because I know it can go long. Okay? That movie split the fan base in half. If it wasn't already split in half. Batman versus Superman. Split the fan base in half. Okay? There were people who were unsure about Zack Snyder and, like if we were to jump into a time machine and go back to 2016 and look at all the videos on YouTube about how bad that movie was, like there's no, it's endless. But what happened was,
who that is fan base? To? That is relevant to fans. Split fan base. If I'm at the top of a corporation, I give a fuck if you split or not. I'm counting the cash. I let the fans discuss that because guess what? When you're doing these things, you have to pick a side, and you pick the side that's putting down the money, and you move forward with them. That's how you have. Otherwise, you'll never make any movie. You'll never make a DC movie again because they're always going to be decisive. When you have 80-year-old franchise, no matter what Batman you put out, there's going to be another half that doesn't like it. So if you're going to make these DC movies, you have to put on your big boy, take off the diapers, put on the big boy pants, and make the movie. And you can't be worried about how split things were. You were never going to escape that. They were never going to escape having that reality. And you're never going to escape, even with Pattinson. Look how much belly aching and whining it went with Pattinson. Oh, that's not my Twilight boy. All that madness. No matter how great a job Robert Pattinson did as Batman, you already had a built-in people that were not going to like that. And it's going to be that way for a while with DC film because you have so many generations that have a death grip to whatever these characters are. They have a death grip to their Superman, a death grip to their Batman, and they don't always let go as quickly.
Well, I'm just saying, you don't think that's a problem though? Like, yes, I know the studio probably doesn't care, but like at the end of the day, it's gonna affect the results, right?
No, the results was $872 million. And it wasn't, and to be honest with you, their mistake was, and they didn't learn this mistake with Superman Returns, is that you never should have set that goal. That was a stupid goal to begin with. And B, you have a generational IP that it's going to take time for these people to be like, wow, I really like that. I mean, a lot of people who hated Man of Steel, those same people, I see them all the time now, they have a different opinion about it. All right, so the fact that it split the audience, business-wise, Warner Brothers shouldn't have given a crap about that. They should have. Their bottom line is what they should have cared about, and they should have moved forward. You have to shoot, like I said, when it's DC movies, you have multi-generational. There was no way around that. There was never any way around that. That is for the fans to chew on each other's ankles about. But the business people should have understood a lot better that they were never going to make a Batman, Superman, or any other type movie without having divisiveness. And now, if you can't handle that, then don't make DC movies. All right, don't make movies about 80-year-old IPs that have grandfathers and grandsons having put their hands on these characters. Well, there's just no way around it.
Let me be devil's advocate. What if they take that choice?
I would rather them take that choice than not real submit to that reality and then expect a different outcome? What how many brain cells would a corporate person have to have in their head to know that you were going to have a built-in class of whiners and that you could not navigate your ship based on that?
I don't identify with any DC fan group at all.
Some people don't, and that's and you have to take that shot too. I mean, but you can't, decide that you're going to make a movie about characters that have been around since the late 30s and have different takes on them, and not understand that there is going to be a built-in wall. Either once you make the decision that you're going to make these movies, you've made your decision. And what they did is they second guessed after they made their initial decisions. You hired a director, you did this movie, you did these 2 movies. The time for second guessing was when you had Zack Snyder in the interview table and the script was in your hand. That was the time for the belly aching and the whining and the second guessing. Once you went forward and you blinked, nobody has faith in the product after that. They want leadership happens from the top down, and if the top blinks and shows that kind of hesitancy, nobody's going to believe in their product. So the divisiveness, I think that and I hear what you're saying, but that should have never mattered to somebody in the corner office. What should have mattered to them was that 871 million and capitalizing on the people who did love it. Because when you have 2 sides, like I said, you pick the one that is going to give you your next dollar. All right, that's what they should have done, and they're going to end up doing that 9 years later, because I think we're going to get a lot of the stuff that that we end up. And like I said, no matter what movie you make, you name a character right now, it's a Superman movie. Brand new everything, brand new. You are instantly going to have 50% of the people that are going to bitch and moan about it. So Warner Discovery is going to have to decide: are we going to make this movie or not? Are we grown men or are we not? If we're grown men, we make our movie and we sift through the garbage and we pick. Those people that are getting to give us some money, just like they did for Man of Steel. People bitching and moaning about Man of Steel. They went to Batman versus Superman. So you gotta do business. So, but. That's how I feel about that one. And Trek goes through it a little bit too sometimes, but not it's in a different way, because people take drastically different takes on Trek. But once again, the people at the top have to make decisions. They got to be stronger in their decision making. That's just my opinion, Brian.
Sorry, Brian.
Oh no, the only thing I was going to say is I feel like Star Trek's at the point where they've put the foot on the gas and they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And I just feel like as DC fans that appreciate a certain DC brand, if that's not the direction they're going to go in and then they hit the gas and leave everybody behind, is everybody going to be okay? That's my
it depends on how these shows do, I guess. I mean, because like I said, if Strange New World comes out and has a look and feel that a lot of people like, I mean, these are the same people who gave you that, they've had a couple bad days at the office.
This isn't a full form thought. So as I talk, feel free to tear it apart. But my perspective on what you just said about DC and Star Trek is the general audience doesn't really care. They want to be entertained for a couple hours, and the fans care. And I feel like you can have both things, right? If the general audience doesn't really care, then why not make a movie that they'll enjoy, but that is written for people who are fans, right? I feel like both can be done together, but maybe I'm wrong. I just don't think that any studio has done that right, because that requires creativity, talent, follow through, planning, and a level of commitment that, to William's point, they're looking at these numbers and they're like, why would we do that? Why would we pay this extra money to consultants that are experts in the material when we could just pocket that ourselves at the executive level? If the general audience, I think that's the way they're going, right? That's their perspective. But I feel like both can be accomplished in the same movie. Because again, the general audience doesn't care. They don't care if they get something that's completely a departure from what fans are expecting or what has traditionally been told for a character. And then in addition, it's like what I'm really getting tired of, and Star Trek has really set this for me, is like, I don't understand why we haven't seen another prominent DC character in decades. Like, where did the creativity and the innovation go? And same with Star Trek. It's like, I'm looking at Picard now and I'm like, this probably could have been good if it wasn't Star Trek and was just a sci-fi show. Like, why didn't they just do that? Why aren't there new properties? Why aren't there new characters being developed? I think that is a litmus test to their level of creativity, which is near zero.
Well, investors don't want to invest in unknown quantities. That's basically what that's about. I mean, they're always going to go, no matter what the IP is. I don't agree with this all the time.
That's what research and testing groups are for.
Well, that's why IP mining is a thing these days.
It's a thing. It is, but then when it comes down to putting the money on the table, a lot of these guys are going to go back to the old standard because it's a proven standard for them. I don't agree with it, but it's just answering your question of why we don't see some of that. To me, listen, I love Star Trek Next Generation, and I like this show for the most part. But I grew out of this Next Generation's way of telling stories.
Sure.
So it's like, you're basically giving me these characters, and I hate nostalgia. A lot of what they relied on is nostalgia, and that's going to be the corporate mentality. That's why we keep seeing reboots and remakes and things like that, and nothing out there across the board, is because they're trying to tap in what worked for somebody else instead of taking a risk with may or may not work for them. Because at this point, the margins are so thin, they can't afford to lose. They can't afford to have anything bomb. They can't afford to, especially if it's a box office. Streaming, it's different. Streaming, you might see that because streaming is, it's less money. It's if it bombs, it doesn't. It's what do you paid for the service, and like I said, a streaming service is pulling in $700 million a month, low end. So sometimes maybe we can experiment with these other things, but on the box office, just the margins are so thin for making money that if it doesn't do as well as they want it to do, somebody's getting fired. Somebody's getting moved around.
That cycle is going to have to break at some point because, there's not any new creative content. So in 20 years, when they're trying to reboot and IP mine, there's not going to be anything left.
Yeah,
because they didn't create anything new to mine. You know what I mean? Like it's an unsustainable cycle. They're going to have the market's going to have to take risks again at some point. That means that we're going to have to get a lot of shitty movies in order to get a few really good movies that we remember fondly.
I think streaming is going to give you that margin. I think what that's going to happen is on streaming because
I agree.
You can take the risk. And be honest with you, this is the good thing about streaming is some of these things that we can imagine in our heads and that would never ever get a shot anywhere are going to get a shot on streaming because the risk reward is different. So, like I said, with Peacemaker, listen, with Suicide Squad doing what it had done in the theaters, which wasn't that great. Peacemaker under the old rules, there's no way you would have ever greenlit Peacemaker before that was even, we knew what was going to happen with Suicide Squad, but yet they did because they knew their minimal risk was on streaming. There was no such thing.
And I feel like that was kind of original tone. That was kind of an original story to me. I mean, yeah, it dovetails into things that have been established in the comics, but I mean, I don't know. Those are the kind of risks I want to see. I mean, I didn't think I was going to like Peacemaker at all. I don't get influenced by other people's opinions, but I watched it and I enjoyed it surprisingly.
Peacemaker did well. I think if you could consolidate and put it into a movie, I think Peacemaker would have bombed in a theater. But because it was put into the right environment and the right long form format, it did well. Suicide Squad did okay, but it did better on streaming. There's just certain movies and certain things that people are just not going to give it a chance on a big screen, but they'll wait till it gets over. And like I said, you have a second life now. Suicide Squad's numbers on streaming were very respectable. And once again, it's value because retention. Because if you liked Peacemaker and you were about to leave HBO Max's subscription service, now you have other things that you can dive into. Because it's not just the thing that got you there. That's what gets you there, but it's the other content that keeps you there. So,
on the topic of like creativity and things like that, I just, this is a little off topic, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Like the world building aspect is part of the reason why I love Star Trek and sci-fi in general. And that has just completely gone out the door. Like when I watch like Voyager or even Deep Space Nine and you see a new ship, I'd go out and I'd try to find those books that have like all the blueprints for the ships. Right.
I got some of those here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, name me one thing in new Star Trek where you're like, I want to see a blueprint for that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then on the Star Wars side, it's like, look, I can just off the top of my head, snow speeders, wampas, asteroid monster, sarlacc, all that kind of stuff. You give me a comprehensive list of all the new creatures from the sequels. Try to spit some out. They exist, but you can count them on like one hand. You know what I mean?
That snake thing, radio.
Exactly. That's every time that I put somebody on the spot. I wasn't going to do that, but every time I put someone on the spot, I'm like, maybe that's always the first one because it's the most notable one. And there are very little other examples, right? Like the whole world building aspect has been sacrificed for sort of throwaway dialogue, easy to shoot scenes, stupid interpersonal interaction, and the world that exists behind it, which I always thought was the most interesting aspect, has been lost.
I agree with that. I also understand that the audience trends and viewing trends have changed, not to my liking. Yeah. But we're into Star Trek. We used to balance between human interest and all that stuff and vision and technology. Part of the problem I don't like about these streaming shows is that they're too short, and some of the character development is either rushed or it just never is finished. And that's not just with Star Trek. That's with any of these shows. It's a roller coaster ride that just leaves me right at the hump there at the tip of the roller coaster.
On that segue, are we talking about Moon Knight today?
Yeah, we talked about Moon Knight. That's a problem I have, dude. I'm falling in love with that series, but I need more than 6 episodes. There is so much that's going to be left on the table here by the time that they roll this up. We were on episode 4 we just watched.
Yeah, I was frustrated with episode 4. There was good and bad, but man, I was super.
That ending was batshit crazy. I'm like, what? Wow. But I enjoyed it. That was like I wanted more. Even when Hippo Lady came out, no spoiler. I wanted more. I was like, and I hate that because I know that ending is coming because I don't even push pause sometimes. I don't want to know how much time is left. And then I love the manifestations in his head. And I love Layla, his wife, his girl. I mean, that she's, this was an episode without Khonshu, which I was disappointed in because I love F. Murray Abraham as Khonshu, is constantly calling him an idiot and all the things that they did in that last episode as far as moving the stars around. I loved all that. I did not think there was enough meat on the bone for me to like Moon Knight. I love Moon Knight. It's up there with Loki for me as my favorite Marvel series goes. And not Loki, 6 episodes. I need more than that. Give me at least 12, man. Give me at least 12 episodes. Star Trek needs 26. Star Trek and these characters that they're using.
I don't know if I can handle 26 episodes.
No, but here's the thing though. The storytelling would be different. The storytelling is different when you have time to focus on things. There's a lot of characters like in Discovery. That was Discovery's week. I love Discovery. But the one weakness I have in Discovery is that there's never enough time to focus on a lot of those middle characters that are important to Star Trek. There are a lot of intermediate. Not everybody's surrounding about the captain and the first officer and the doctor. There are other people on that ship, secondary engineer people, that in any level of Star Trek, you got to know those guys. Sometimes they got their own episode. Chief of Security. How many times was Worf featured, in a storyline where it was about him? But you had that time to do that. You can't do that in these short form storylines. I mean, I'm glad that we have them because some of these shows wouldn't be happening. But now that I'm watching them, I'm like, there's a lot left on the table no matter what I'm watching, no matter how much I love it. I mean, you can tell me that I'm going to be satisfied with Moon Knight at episode 6. I'm probably not going to be. I will love it, but I will probably be like shaking my TV like that. I need more. I mean, stop introducing me to the crack and then cutting me off. Damn it.
Moon Knight's going to be, they're going to have to really hit hard in these last 2 episodes. But it feels to me, right? I mean, this is what's going on, right? It's an experimentation, right? They're going to have a first season that has a limited amount of episodes just in case it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get received well. And then their second season, they'll have more 8 or 10. That seems to be the
I'm trying not to because some of these guys haven't.
Right.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I was trying not to bring up because it's not just a hippo.
It's not a spoiler because it wasn't in the original story. We have no idea where it's going. To be fair.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm okay. When I'm doing these shows, I'm just terrified I'm going to fuck it up for somebody.
Okay, fair enough.
Been out for 3 days. Relax, man.
3 days is an eternity now.
Yeah, I know, but I ever since that old Luke thing, where everybody got pissed off, and there were people that were. I mean, I was at a 24-hour Starbucks, and I was standing behind somebody who had just watched the episode, and they had aired at midnight, and he blew it for the barista who was still at work and couldn't watch. And I'm like, I felt horrible for her.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, because she didn't have the time to even get home and watch it, and I'm like,
who talks to their barista about shows they watch though? That's weird.
That's pretty
she
messed
had a
up.
Baby Yoda pin.
Oh,
so
damn it!
Yeah,
I hate starting nerd conversations. I mean, I'm an introvert big time. I have social anxieties and things like that. So when I go out,
I don't.
I put my
If
hood
I
on.
see you with a shirt, dude, if I see you with a wrestling shirt on,
Yeah,
you might, like I said, I had a sign up here. Don't start talking wrestling with me, because if you got to catch a plane or you got to go back to work, you're going to be late. And time flies when we start talking that. So there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, especially with nerd stuff, dude. We could go forever. That's why I opened this place up, so I could talk with other nerds. And that was before the internet was really prevalent. You know, could you imagine? Man, I remember how things were when we didn't have the internet to talk. We actually had to talk to people. We actually had to pick up these things that were tethered to the wall and call them and be like, "Hey, is this long distance?" You know, it's like now it's like,
yeah, I didn't do that. I just hung out by myself, and then like.
But you know what?
I had
a lot of
into
it
the stuff I was into. That was like my
exactly like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, dude. It's cool to be a nerd now. They're cosplaying, you know, nerds getting hot chicks.
I'm almost over it now. That's the cynical part of me. I'm just like, nah, I don't even want to be a nerd anymore.
Like we were talking about Dungeons and Dragons,
sold out, bought out.
Yeah, nobody was playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Thanks,
like
Big
when I was
Bang
a kid.
Theory of bastards.
I played and I kept it like a dirty secret.
Yeah, because you got your people who fuck around with you.
Yeah.
You know? We would play Dungeons and Dragons at home. The kids would always get picked on. They would mess up their clothes and all that. You know, so I started playing with them. And as a junior high guy, I was a little bit bigger, than and I started playing D&D. And they come over and started flipping over or something like, listen, you're getting your ass kicked. You know, we leave our stuff alone. We're in our little nerd corner. And, we weren't getting anything. But, like, now it's like you look at the nerd culture now, it's like, holy cow, dude. When I went to Comic-Con, there was just comic book collectors there. Now you go to Comic-Con, it's like you got a cosplayer with a different outfit costume for each day that he or she is there.
Yeah.
I was like, cosplayers when I was in. I mean, and that's cool and everything, but it's just like it's weird now because.
Well, I think there's a lot of, to be fair, and I'm really not trying to be elitist here. I'm just trying to point out something socially. What nerd was and back then is not the same that nerd is now. I think it's largely following trends. It's a very surface level. Like I remember there's a famous cosplayer who is in Portland. But I used to work on a show called Heroes of Cosplay. I worked with a dude that was from Portland and helped him with costumes and things like that, and did like the electronics for his costumes and stuff. So I got really into like that cosplay circuit. And, you would think that some of these people are just huge mega fans. And to be, in my experience in that world, those people at that level, especially like a lot of the female cosplayers, they were doing it because they wanted a career in modeling. They wanted to increase their Instagram. They really like, I remember one time there was like a Black Cat cosplayer, and I was there to like work on costumes, right? So I would sew up or fix up or solder or whatever. That was my position there for the show. And I was like, she had this gadget that was from Black Cat, and it was part of her costume. It was like that because it stopped. One of the LEDs stopped working, right? So I'm there just in some solder to get it working. I'm like, man, this is really cool. Like, this is pretty comic accurate and all that. And she's like, oh, I don't even read the comics. I don't even know about this character. I like the costume. And to be fair, I think that's the overwhelming majority of the cosplay thing, right? It's more like another Halloween than it is like these are people who were part of the nerd culture, like you're referring to when we were growing up. It's different.
Yeah, it's a different world. All right, Jalen, man. Yeah, I know. And you know what? Here's the thing, Jalen, and I watch this with people. I do our online watch parties with our private groups of people. Not everybody is understanding some of the stuff. I'm having to explain a lot, even though some of this is not part of the story, not part of the original versions of Noon Night. It's the way some of the guys are like, okay, what's that? What's that? Who's that? Is there a third personality? Who is that one avatar that talked to him at the end there? So I'm having to pause, explain, do all that. So not everybody is taking it in. I am, but I know there are certain people out there watching that because I get a lot of questions about Moon Knight. Who's this guy? who's this guy in the comics? Who is Layla in the comics? I show her name in the comics. It's different, who's the cab driver that might be the third personality that, did the stabbing, then when it wasn't Steven or Mark. There's a lot of people who don't, that even though I think this is being rolled out beautifully, I still watch it with people that are like, wait a minute, pause. So, and the Avatar one where they had the avatars and they were, that was one of the cooler things that they did. And when they all got possessed, some of the guys I was watching didn't quite get all that. And then the whole Alexander the Great thing I thought was cool. There's something that kind of gross that they do to get what they need. I thought it. And Ethan Hawke is excellent in this.
Yeah, I really enjoy
he is creepy.
Yeah,
he's creepy. The way
calm,
he talks,
collected. Yeah,
he's just kind of just creepy, and it was like wow. So, okay, on the wrestling, New Japan, my favorite stuff. Just announced that they're doing a show at AEW on June 26th.
Good sirs. Have a good.
All right, man.
Later.
Easy, Brian.
They're doing some stuff with AEW, so that was one of the things I was going to talk about, but I don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to do that on next week's show. Let's see what we were supposed to cover. We were supposed to cover Moon Knight. We did. Let's do some real quick comic reviews and stuff that I'm getting better. I'm still a week behind as far as my reading goes. So right now I am on Sandman Universe, Nightmare Country. When I first opened up, there was a label that most of you may or may not know of it when it's called Vertigo. Vertigo was the stuff that I read. Now it's become, the stuff I read now is Black Label. So Sandman, which was one of the anchor titles, these are the two variants, one of the anchor titles of what was Vertigo Comics back then, is now on DC Black Label, which I have already said even before this came out was the best stuff that DC puts out is the Black Label stuff. It's Sandman, Nightmare Country. Some of you will remember the original storyline that came out years ago. It's Dream Country. One of the best.
I have all those collector's editions box set versions of that.
Oh my goodness.
Those
if
comics.
You are looking for a way into Sandman. Some of you guys who don't have some of the older stuff, and now we know, with the Netflix show coming out, if you're looking for a way to get into Sandman and you're brand new and you want to start somewhere, this is a good place to start, and then work your way back from them. There's all kinds of trade paperbacks. We got them here of Sandman, Death, Time of Your Life, all those characters, but it harkens back to a really good time for me as a collector. And we didn't have variant covers coming out back then. The art in it reminds me of the mid-90s stuff that they put out for them. I love it. For Marvel,
I love Vertigo comics. Can I give a recommendation after you're done too? No, you go. I'll do it at the end.
Okay. Next one is Elektra 100. Elektra hasn't been around for 100 issues, but she has been on 100 covers. And when you open this up, the cool thing about this is because I thought, what did I miss of the other 99 covers? There's a part in here that explains to you just about that. And every cover that Elektra has been on.
I love it when they do that. That's awesome. That's cool.
So this was the 100th cover, and you see, if you go to it's pages and pages. Elektra Assassin, Elektra her own series that came out. There's Elektra Assassin, the first of those issues with Cyclist on it. Her miniseries right here. The issues where she was with Doctor Strange. I remember that artist that Elektra Lives Again when they brought her back after she had been killed by Bullseye. Just everything in here, and then they roll it up to the actual issue that we have now in our hands, which is right there. So, and it's a great story. Almost anything that Elektra has been in the last few months has been a great story. That includes Daredevil. And something near and dear to me, the world cannot get enough Blade Runner. Blade Runner has been putting out series. This is an indie called from Titan Comics. They've had Blade Runner Origins, Blade Runner 2029, and Blade Runner 29. I have them all here.
Yeah, I'm missing some. I might need to talk to you so I can buy some from you.
Okay, they're beautiful. Listen, I am a card-carrying Blade Runner fanatic.
Me too. Let's have a Blade Runner discussion sometime.
Oh, we are, and that bad boy is going to be long. Yes. So there's just not enough Blade Runner in the world for me. So check out Blade Runner Origins. But when you get onto this, go backwards, and there's other books: Blade Runner 2019, 2029, and there's a couple of them. I got them all here, but you can just Google Titan Comics Blade Runner, and they also have them in trade paperbacks if you don't want to, because some of the issues have gone up because some of the variants are beautiful.
Yeah.
So what did you have, Scotty?
Oh, I just, when you said I love Vertigo Comics. In fact, apart from anything, I understand it's like a DC subsidiary and all that, but Vertigo is my favorite, and my absolute favorite series out of everything is this. If you've ever read Transmetropolitan.
Yes. Oh, yes.
This is my favorite. If you want to understand my soul personally, if you care about a Cylon soul, this is my soul right here. And Transmetropolitan is, even the writer has said this. It's very much about like social activism, but it's not necessarily preachy. It's a critique. It's somewhat of like a near future cyberpunk kind of world. And the main character named Spider Jerusalem is somewhat of an avatar of Hunter S. Thompson. If you ever saw like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or anything like that, it's kind of like if you took Hunter S. Thompson and you put him into a slightly in the future cyberpunk landscape, dystopian cyberpunk landscape. And there's just it's amazing writing. Warren Ellis does the comic. Yeah.
Answer this question. Okay. Yes, I think so, because I think Neil Gaiman is as close to this project as anything. From what I've seen and heard, this looks great. I cannot wait for if you're referring to the Netflix series coming out. I can't wait. I think it's going to be it's on par, if not surpass Lucifer. I could be totally wrong, but from plus to me, Sandman has always been a more intriguing character than Lucifer for me personally. So I'm looking forward to it more. What is my favorite comic book? Batman comic run? Ooh, okay. Year 1, year 2. Yeah, that's gonna be it. Year 1 and year 2 are gonna be my favorite Batman runs. Now, favorite Batman stories is gonna be The Dark Knight Returns, and then it's year 1, year 2, and then The Killing Joke, and some of those right there. But those generally in the mid '80s, where things started to turn for a little darker tone, as far as Frank Miller taking over, David Mazzucchelli doing year 2, the artwork that came out of that, and then all the way up to 1989 with Death in the Family would be another one that was up there with me. But as far as my favorites, year 1, it goes year 1, year 2. Those are my 2 favorite runs. Okay, let's see. All right. All right. See, Darcipio, you're wrong. It's okay to be wrong. I've gone back and forth with him on this. I believe that Deckard is a replicant. We got to save that one though. So when we do a Blade Runner one, because I have enough to go for Blade Runner forever. So that might be one of those strings that we have to break up. But yeah, we'll discuss on the truth that Deckard is a replicant on when we do our Blade Runner, the importance of Blade Runner stream, which will be coming up here real soon. It'll be our first non-comic book one, as a matter of fact, because the next 2 are Chris Claremont and Frank Miller, and then the one after that will be the power of Blade Runner, and how a 40-year-old movie that bombed in 1982 here on its 40th anniversary has resonated and reverberated and reflected through 4 decades and influenced so many walks of life. It has changed the way I see the world. I see the world through the lens of Blade Runner, and it got better for me when I consider its sequel to be a superior movie. Came out in 2017. And also didn't do well, but guess what? People were watching the hell out of it on HBO Max. It sold 22 million in DVD sales, and just because people are late to the party doesn't mean they won't get there. And people will get there when it comes to Blade Runner. We see it now. 40 years.
The cost of true vision.
Yeah, we're not talking about the funny thing about it is most of those movies that came out in 1982, we talk about them. We talk about Conan the Barbarian. Obviously, we talk about Wrath of Khan. We live around Blade Runner. Blade Runner is all around us in ways that none of those movies ever could be, as great as they were. So yeah, we're gonna. I want you there, Darcipio. In fact, I might send you a link and we can have this conversation on a little window. He's wishy-washy on that one, and we'll go over that too, because I want to bring up the quotes that he quotes on both sides, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, I saw what you did, and I interpret that to be that Deckard's a replicant. But once again, TJ, I hope you're there too, because I I will. This is one of the ones I want to interact with the fans as well as the people we have on the fandom, because I think Blade Runner means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I really can't wait to have that discussion.
It's a transcendent piece of sci-fi that
Yeah, I mean, I watch it once a month.
Underrated.
All right, Scotty, thanks for coming, man, and
thanks for having me, man.
Not blowing up the stream this time around with some crazy no, I'm just kidding.
I'm usually good.
I will get with you because we got to get everybody together to do these ones. I don't know if we'll be able to do them tomorrow. I don't know where Dawson is, but there are certain people that I just need to have on certain things because I know, that discussion is going to go to we'll get the most out of it. You know what I mean? It won't just be me talking. There's other people that I know that I want on certain streams that I know care about these particular runs and storylines that will get the most, and the audience will get the most out of the conversation by having us on there. So, all right, hey, thanks for everybody.
About things that I haven't read.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I understand. I understood where you were coming from too. All right, everybody, thanks for coming. Thanks for participating. Thanks for providing us with content and questions. And we will see you either on the Poindexter Lounge at some point, or if not before then, I will see you next Friday. We'll probably go into our pre-comic book day breakdown and all that kind of stuff because May is going to be a huge week for us. So we're going to break down that. We have May the 4th be with you happening. We also have Strange New Worlds premiering, and we have Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. And guess what? I'm going to probably be sending some of you watching that stream to the movies. All right, we'll see you next week.